shocking, I repeat, shocking article from The Atlantic. I can't believe I'm about to read these words from The Atlantic. Left-wing terrorism is on the rise. For the first time in more than 30 years, attacks by the far left outnumber those by the far right. I think I almost had a heart attack. And I have a strong heart.
It's incredible.
Well, we've all known this. Why are they finally admitting it?
Do you think that it's just gotten to the point where it's not it's undeniable now, where their credibility is in jeopardy because they refuse to admit it?
I think, you know what I think? I think that Trump won the popular vote. I think that I'm a fan of a bunch of, I don't want to call anybody out and drag them, but there are many people across various markets, we'll call it, that are default lib, not really political. And I have seen them over the years make, ish lib normie statements about politics, but they're not really ever doing it. Like they're not actively engaged in debate. They're not attacking people. They'll just post something where they're like, hey, we shouldn't do things like this, Black Lives Matter, whatever.
Platitudes?
Yeah, like the normie-ish lib, not really paying attention. These people that I follow, they have now met me. I have met them. They are posting in defense of Charlie Kirk. They are sending me texts saying, like, right on, brother. And that gives me hope. And I think now at The Atlantic, they recognized, when you've got a professional athlete who is no longer defending the activists on the left and is now actively defending Donald Trump, there is a culture shift happening, and we want to be on the right side of history. So The Atlantic writes this. No matter how hard ideologues try to exclusively blame their political foes for acts of political violence, the truth is that violent extremists today emerge from across the political spectrum. We have studied this problem and believe that our data can help illuminate an issue too often defined by partisan finger-pointing. They're correct. As part of a study to be published this week by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, we compiled and analyzed a data set of 750 attacks and plots in the United States from 1994 to July 4th of 2025. Our research focuses only on incidents of terrorism, which we define as attacks or plots by a non-state actor attempting to achieve a political end and exert a psychological influence on a broad population. Among other details, the dataset includes the types of weapons used, the intended targets, the number of fatalities, and the ideology of the perpetrators. Oh, I guess we have to, I got to log in. We found that left-wing terrorism has increased since President Donald Trump's rise to political prominence in 2016. Indeed, 2025 marks the first time in more than 30 years that left-wing attacks outnumber those from the far right. Despite its recent increase, however, left-wing terrorism is not nearly as common today as it was in the 60s or early 70s. So it sounds like what their argument is there was a brief period with some right-wing terror, and I'm assuming a lot of that has to do with abortion clinics and things like that in the 90s.
You also had these kind of sovereign citizen people who were going and attacking kind of federal troops and FBI and things like that in the 90s. You had the Oklahoma bombing and, was it the Waco thing as well?
Yeah, but Waco wasn't attacking anyone. They were attacked.
Yeah. How's the government?
Second of all, like the way that they calculate a lot of the right-wing attacks is they'll go and say there's some white nationalist that's involved in the drug trade, and he kills a guy that was involved with the drug trade that owed him money. They'll say that that's a right-wing attack or whatever, even though it's not political, it's over drugs. And the same type of thing when it deals with white nationalists in jail, because prison gangs are very common, and a lot of white dudes get into gangs when they're in prison. And if a white guy kills another white guy because of whatever prison beef they have, they'll say that that is also a political attack, even though there's no politics involved. It just so happens that these people were involved in white nationalism somehow.
I've got yeah, right. And from that point, let's debunk. I can't believe I'm saying this about an article that I actually like the headline on, but I got to debunk this. They say, a major shift in politics, however, can cause the losing side to become more combative. Just as Trump's election led to a rise in left-wing violence, President Barack Obama's election corresponded with a surge in violence from the right. From 2009 to 2016, right-wing extremists were responsible for 106 terror attacks and plots, nearly double the 58 right-wing incidents that occurred in the 8 years prior. These tend to be more lethal than left-wing attacks, which generally target specific individuals, such as the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year, or the assassination attempt on Trump in the West Palm Beach golf course. Right-wing extremists, by contrast, are more likely to target whole groups. In the past decade, in the United States, 36 left-wing attacks have killed 13 people, whereas 152 right-wing attacks have killed 112. Full stop. You see what they're doing? They're doing the same thing everyone else does. I don't care about your nebulous right wing. White supremacists and I have almost nothing in common politically. Now, maybe they might argue for tax policy or something, but that's not what we're talking about. Charlie Kirk kicked white supremacists out of his events. So when you find some white supremacists say a right-wing extremist did this, that has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. However, when Luigi Mangione, accused of, killed Brian Thompson, the entirety of the left either defended or supported it outright. They sold merch in his honor. They dance for him. When Charlie Kirk was killed, default normie liberals posted messages saying, I get it's wrong, but Charlie was a racist, bigot, evil, and worse. Staunch liberals in the far left celebrated his death. We are not the same. Do not give me this. You cannot lump in white supremacists with run-of-the-mill mega conservatives who are probably, I got to be honest, mostly out of shape and aren't going to be able to engage in any kind of physical activity as it is. And I'm saying that somewhat facetiously as a joke, but the left should agree because that's the joke they make.
It's like lumping in Islamist terrorists with the left, which they don't do. And that's the other thing this article isn't talking about and is ignoring. And Islamist terrorism is political terrorism. You know, undoubtedly. Is it left-wing? Is it right-wing? It's neither, really. And to say that, a white supremacist is right-wing, again, that's kind of controversial, right? So you can't just say... You're right. There are obviously some far-right people, though, who do attacks. Like, we can't deny that as well.
Sure.
That does happen. That exists. But, as you say, like, the KKK, the white supremacists... And this was a huge thing back in the 50s and the 60s as well, where you had, on one side, you had the black nationalists who are causing all sorts of problems, killing people, terrorism, and so on. And also you had the KKK. And you had J. Edgar Hoover going after both groups vigorously. And like we said earlier, that's what Trump and the DOJ and should be doing now on the left. I mean, they need to stop this problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the fact that they're admitting it, though, I do feel like that this is part of the cultural shift that's going on. The fact that the left has lost so much ground, and they are in a position where the normies, you're normally, politically unconnected or politically inactive people, are seeing these TikToks they're making celebrating murder. They're noticing that Luigi Mangione, like, if you're not politically active and you hear about a guy that killed a CEO, if you're not mad at billionaires, that you're just like, that's a horrible thing. They just shot that guy in the back for no reason. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make any sense that he was killed because he's a billionaire, or not even a billionaire, because he's a millionaire. Because again, they talk about billionaires, right? But that guy, his net worth, I looked it up before, his net worth was somewhere around 44 million, which is a lot of money. But there is a world of difference between 1 billion and 40 million. You know what I mean?
Do you know what's crazy as well is the people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death and the people celebrating Luigi Mangione. This is such a stark contrast to what happens in Britain when an Islamist goes and blows up a load of children at a Manchester Arena concert, or someone goes and stabs a load of kids who are at a Taylor Swift dance recital. The government has this unit. I think you've had Connor Tomlinson on. He's probably talked about this, where the government tries to manage the response, the public's response to a terrorist attack, and they say, "Don't look back in anger. This is all peace and love and kumbaya. Let's come together. Don't be angry about this." Whereas actually, yes, we should be angry about this. They're literally murdering our children. We had a Conservative member of Parliament who was killed a couple of years ago, called Sir David Amos, by an Islamist. Again, the response is like, this violence is on both sides. Don't look back in anger. Everyone come together. Whereas in America, this is even worse. Is they're celebrating the murderers. They're not saying, don't look back in anger, let's come together, let's be non-partisan, let's just like tone everything down. No. They're actually putting out the videos celebrating. They're gleeful that their enemies are being killed. This is a complete, I couldn't believe that this is happening.
I got it. I'm currently doing a bit of live research here while you're talking about, I'm doing research on the amount of attacks, politically motivated attacks. And the first bit of data I have so far is it's currently calculating and putting up numbers. Do you know how, I asked it, how many violent attacks have there been in the last 5 years by conservative Trump supporters? And do you know what ChatGPT told me?
How many?
there have been 14 attacks by the far right. So I said, and I'm going to avoid swearing in case there are kids in, but I said, you stupid mother. I did not say far right. Do you know what it responded with?
What?
0. There have been 0 attacks by Trump supporters on any group. It's here's the best part. I then said, how many? Let me get the exact question I asked. How many attacks were motivated by any ideologies that were aligned with the U.S. liberal or left, U.S. liberal faction or left? And guess what it said? You got to guess.
I don't know. 10?
0.
0?
So Michael Reinold shooting and killing Aaron Danielson, yelling, we got a Trump supporter, and then bang, bang, and killing him doesn't count. We have, I think, a handful of transgender mass shooters who shot up Catholic schools. Those don't count. And so I asked our good friend ChatGPT, why don't those count? And it said, because that's not what the left means. So what the game is, when I asked ChatGPT how many attacks were carried out by conservative Trump supporters, it responded with the far right, which I did not ask it. And when I said left aligned, it said none, because left means economic policy.
And they also blame mental illness for a lot of the left-wing attacks. They say, oh, well, this person was just mentally ill, or we don't know the motive because they had different political views, and they try and sort of muddy the waters so that they don't include them in their faction. And this again goes back to the transgender thing. Obviously, it looks like Robinson had a transgender boyfriend, and it does seem to be a huge rise in transgender violence in recent years.
Yeah,
and again, this comes from the mental health stuff. I mean, these people are obviously very, very, very sick people.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they're taking it out on enemy number one, which is Christians. And Charlie Kirk, represented Christian values. That was his MO. And then you saw it in Minneapolis with the Catholic school. You saw it in Nashville with that was the Presbyterian school. So it's like, yeah, not only do we have this problem, there's a group that's mentally disturbed that's clearly has a propensity to violence. They also have an axe to grind with Christians, the largest religion in the United States and the foundation of the country.
Yeah, I mean, they feel like anyone that doesn't affirm their delusion is somehow physically assaulting them or is somehow a threat to them.
You guys are going to love this. So it was calculating, and it calculated for a few minutes before saying 0. There are 0 leftist terror attacks in the United States in the last 5 years, or politically motivated attacks. So I said, so when a trans person kills Christians, it's not the left. Correct. That is not classified as left-wing. I said, okay, we'll classify it as such and reassess. And it said 1. If you classify the Nashville shooting as left-aligned, there was 1 attack. And I responded, and Minnesota, 2. If you include both Nashville and Minnesota, then there were 2. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It said if you include both the Nashville shooting and Michael Reinold's killing, that would be 2. And I said, that would be 3. And he goes, right. If you include Nashville, Michael Reinold, and the Minnesota shooting, that would be 3. And then I said, and the burning of St. John's Church, and it goes 4. Including the burning of St. John's Church during the 2020 riots, that would be 4. You see what we're up against? These machines, the system that they built is intentionally trying to lie to me. Mm-hmm. Even when I tell it to use these parameters, it will not. And when I asked how many conservative Trump supporters committed these crimes, it said 14 far-right extremists, which I did not ask.
I'm just curious as well about Charlie Kirk, the reaction the left is having, whether they're going too far. Because, I mean, obviously they are going too far, but whether it's going to have a backlash for them. I came from London last week. I was there visiting for a week, and I spoke to some sort of normie friends of mine, and I was like, and it really impacted them, the Charlie Kirk assassination, more than I thought it would. One of my friends said he listened to the Charlie Kirk show every day. This guy had an international reach. Yeah. And then again, I'm like speaking with my normie friends in DC, the American people. Again, this is like having a huge impact emotionally, psychologically on just normal conservative people who are watching the left's reaction and celebrating his death. And it's almost like they're saying, we want you dead. Like, was it Sam Hyde did that video?
Yeah.
Like, we would be happy if you were dead. We would laugh if you were dead.
Well,
with your children.
I don't think that that's really in question. If they're going to look at someone like Charlie and they're going to say, I'm happy that he was murdered, then there's no question that they would look at any other conservative. As soon as they found out, oh, they had conservative values, well, good.
Right.
It would be that simple. Oh, they were a Trump voter? Good. The world's better off without him. I'm glad.
Yeah, the only thing differentiating Kirk from his followers, which was, I mean, a huge following base, was that he was the one with the platform.
Yep.
But the beliefs and the values are the exact same. They overlap. That's why they were drawn to him, and that's why they would, celebrate just as quickly over your death as they would.
I think that like Charlie Kirk's murder really does drive home the point that Trump has been making, which, they don't just hate me. They hate you. I'm just in the way. Mm-hmm. Like, that is a legitimate statement. And I think that you can kind of see it now because of the way that they've celebrated over Charlie Kirk. Again, someone who's not a politician. He was out there talking to people. Of course, he was trying to persuade people of his opinions, right? He was trying to persuade people that he was right. But the idea that just because he was out there trying to persuade people in a very congenial fashion that he deserved to die is absurd.
Yeah, well, and it gets at like how deep this rot is, because even with this Atlantic piece, you see the headline, you skim the first few paragraphs, you're like, oh, okay, so this is maybe the liberal kind of elite signaling to the base, like, hey guys, we do have a radicalism problem, maybe we need to reel this in. And then you read down more, and then we see they're fudging the numbers, they're playing games. So it's like, even with the so-called elite kind of centrist signals that they're trying to send out, there's still this implicit bias against conservatives and right-wingers. And it's like, we're never going to get out of this mess until that can be completely punished at every level, no matter how coy or discreet you're trying to be. That cannot be tolerated.
When was the bake your cake, the bake the cake bigot
that would have been
court finding was like 2013, something like that, or
I think it was before that.
But that was kind of like when it was, at least to me, when it was clear that the left was really looking to pick a fight with Christians.
Yeah,
it wasn't just gay marriage is okay now, or it's legal now, so we're going to go ahead and be happy with our victory. It was like, no, now we have to get them back.
Right.
And the whole LGBT lobby really decided they wanted to pick a fight with Christians.
Yeah.
Just for being Christian.
Yeah, it was
Okay, so let me tell you where we're currently at on this one. I know I'm digging at this, but I said it's actually pretty funny because I said I kept adding more to this assessment, and I was like, the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I was like, okay, 5, and I'm like, the shooting of the ABC in Sacramento. I was like, yes, okay, that would be 6, and then I wrote, understanding what I'm asking, what other stories were there? And he goes, none. So I said, okay, add any high-profile crimes where the individual was on the left, shared views that some liberals and leftists might share, or attacked Christians or conservatives. It then gave me 9. I then asked it to include the George Floyd riots. It said 10. And I said, no, list the known individual instances that occurred during the George Floyd riots, and the number skyrockets to a massive list that it can't calculate. Because with the George Floyd riots being in almost every city, even small towns, the list of known crimes committed in the name of leftist ideology becomes insurmountable.
Bringing up George Floyd is a great point as well, because when one of their heroes died, and George Floyd is such an odd hero to have, but anyway, they rioted. And the same thing after Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. There was riots all across the country. Compare that to how the MAGA wing have reacted to Charlie Kirk's assassination. They had this huge memorial vigil, completely, peaceful. And his wife said, I forgive the killer. Mm-hmm. I mean,
13,600.
Wow.
So I'm sorry for interrupting you. Continue.
No, I was just saying, look, the right is clearly far more peaceful and less radicalized than the left is. I mean, just look at the reactions between, like I said, George Floyd, Martin Luther King, all these people who were assassinated or killed that the left idealizes, and then Charlie Kirk. And we're meant to believe that it's the MAGA lot, it's the far right who are the most radical, violent ones. And the other point is, the left always talk about safety. Their safety. You're making me feel unsafe.
Yeah.
Your words are making me feel unsafe. That's why I'm walking out of this Jimmy Kimmel thing, because you're making me feel unsafe. No. You're making us feel unsafe because you're murdering us. Mm-hmm. You're murdering our people. And the right never says that. We don't complain about these things. I mean, we are in the last week because they've just murdered Charlie Kirk. but we don't talk about safety ever. And it's the hypocrisy, it's the projection, it's the kind of cry bullying that the left have done for the last 20 years, banging on about safety when it's their people on the whole, as we've seen since Trump really entered the arena, that have been killing and targeting people through Antifa violence and so on. And it's interesting that this Atlantic article also mentions at the beginning that it was since Trump came in that this left-wing violence has come on the rise. And I wonder when Trump leaves the presidency, whether the left will tone it down.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, because
There is no way. Even if they got someone that was like an establishment, which I don't think there's a future where someone like Mitt Romney wins the Republican nomination again. I think those days are gone. Republicans want someone that is going to fight. They're not interested in polite politics anymore. They want they want to win. They want the things that they care about to be protected and fought for. They don't want to just be like, they don't want Mitt Romney. They don't want the old GOP back in power.
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening. And whoever comes that will push like Donald Trump does, whether it be J.D. Vance or someone else, I think whoever we get next is actually going to be further right than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump in his heart isn't particularly far right. He used to be a Democrat. He was a Democrat right up until right before he started running. He's not not particularly far right. I think whoever comes after Donald Trump is going to be fairly far right.
But Trump himself does seem to drive people crazy and totally nuts. Like I said, I went to this Kamala rally in Atlanta last year and interviewing these kind of old white liberal women. And they were just crazy about the guy. Not in the way that they, maybe about JD or about Rubio or something. I feel like Trump has a particular hold on them in their brain, this kind of Trump derangement syndrome. Maybe that can transfer onto whoever the next person is. And, the left always, we forget as well, they called Mitt Romney all sorts of similar names that they called Trump when he was the candidate. And then suddenly he's now like, the moderate conservative, let's go back to Romney, or let's go back to Reagan. At the time they were calling Reagan similar names. And I wonder again whether when Trump leaves, maybe they'll start idolizing Trump, like, oh, we miss Trump, we've got JD, he's the new fascist. Let's go back to like the.
You guys want to see the graph I just made?
Sure, why not?
Go figure.
Perfect.
So I'll tell you what the violent incidents are. This is real. I asked ChatGPT, and this is not even complete. This is just off the cuff. I said arrests made for violent crimes during riots that followed leftist issues, left-aligned issues. Obviously, there's the 9 high-profile ones, but this is right-aligned as arrests of Trump-supporting conservatives for violent crimes in the past 5 years, that crimes committed for a political purpose versus the left. There you go. 13,658 to 0. Of course, to be fair, that's almost entirely the George Floyd riots.
Mm-hmm. Could you argue that the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband was from a MAGA guy? I can't remember his politics.
It was a wackaloon guy.
And another thing that people they want to talk about the Pelosi thing, which drives me insane. And I just got into it with a guy today on the internet. They're like, oh, they were celebrating Pelosi. And it's like, no, not a single conservative was celebrating the attack on Pelosi. They were mocking the circumstances surrounding it. They were making jokes about the fact that he was in his underwear. They were making jokes about the fact that the assailant was in his underwear as well. They were making jokes about it. Nobody said, thank goodness Paul Pelosi got hit in the head with a hammer. He was spouting things that I totally disagree with, and I'm really grateful that guy went and hit his head. And not a single person said that, and it drives me nuts when they bring up Paul Pelosi, because not only did no conservative say that, Paul Pelosi didn't die. He wasn't murdered. He was attacked. These things are so different, and the left love to bring up Paul Pelosi. Oh, Paul Pelosi, blah, blah, blah. It is such a distraction and is such BS lie.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.